Providence, Rhode Island. The program did not end when the hospital closed. It adapted. It shifted from pediatric psychiatry to adult placement, from medical supervision to private guardianship, from treatment to function. The institution changed shape. The children changed status. The system stayed the same. St. Raymond's Pediatric Hospital had provided a physical structure for the behavioral compliance program. Rooms, staff, schedules, enforcement. But institutions suffer from visibility. Buildings attract attention. Budgets can be audited. Programs can be inspected. Families can visit. Reporters can ask questions. The remote care division solved visibility. It dispersed the subjects into private residences across Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Placement eliminated the burden of infrastructure. Children were not confined to a building. They were confined to routines. The state did not object. Transfers from hospitals to home care were legal. Guardianship arrangements could be classified as private. Private arrangements did not trigger oversight. Most citizens believed that guardianship meant adoption or foster care. The remote care division did not use either model. Children were not adopted. They were assigned. Guardians did not raise them. They housed them. They reported on them. They managed them. The children did not call them parents. They did not call them anything at all. The remote care division operated on a simple structure. The foundation provided funding. The hospital identified subjects. The guardians enforced compliance. The subjects complied. The program continued without interruption for several years after. Ward C was dissolved. Most residents of Providence were unaware that the behavioral compliance program still existed. There were no signs, no clinics, no offices, no phone numbers, only mailboxes. The first placements occurred in late 1987. The subjects were between 8 and 12 years old. Some could speak, some refused, some had never begun. The remote care division did not attempt to correct speech. It attempted to correct resistance. Resistance was inefficient. Children who accepted instructions without explanation progressed. Those who questioned instructions did not. Progress was measured monthly. Guardians submitted written reports. The reports included no emotional assessments, only observations of compliance. Reports included metrics such as subject follows basic instructions, subject maintains routine, no outbursts, no incidents, no complaints. Progress did not require conversation. It required silence. Residents in neighborhoods with placements did not complain. Subjects did not shout. Subjects did not fight. Subjects did not cry. Subjects did not disturb anyone. Some neighbors did not know children were present. Some never saw them outside. Some did not know their names. Silence camouflaged the program. The stipend system incentivized guardians. Guardians received monthly payments for housing and reporting. The payments were not high, but they were stable. Stability attracts participation. Participation allowed continuity. Stability also prevented investigation. Nobody investigates stable programs. Investigations follow complaints. There were no complaints. Subjects aged under guardianship. Subjects grew without identity. Most citizens assume childhood is defined by school. The remote care division did not share that assumption. Subjects did not attend school. Education had not been part of Ward C. Compliance could be taught without curriculum. Guardians reported that subjects did not request education. They did not request anything. Requests imply needs. Needs imply negotiation. Negotiation implies resistance. The program did not train children to negotiate. It trained them to follow. Not all guardians understood the nature of the program. Some believed they were enrolled in a long-term care initiative. Some believed the children were nonverbal by choice. Some believed they were protecting vulnerable minors. None were informed. The subjects were part of a research program. The behavioral silence of subjects made them deceptively manageable, whereas institutions struggled with disruptive behavior. Guardians encountered no disruption at all. The absence of disruption was considered progress. Guardians often described subjects as calm. Some described them as obedient. Others described them as quiet. Few described them as present. Caretaker recalled an encounter with one subject several years after placement. During an interview, she stated, "He never argued. He never insisted. If you told him to sit, he sat. If you told him to wait, he waited. He waited for hours without asking why." Her statement seemed benign until she added, "He never asked who I was." Guardians often mistook silence for acceptance. Silence is not acceptance. Silence is compliance. Compliance was the output. Identity was irrelevant. The program did not prepare subjects for adulthood. It prepared them for instruction. Children adapted to adult routines without context. They followed schedules without questioning. They performed tasks without hesitation. One guardian wrote in a monthly report, "Subject performs assigned chores without instruction, repetition. No prompting required." The remote care division did not assign chores for domestic benefit. Chores were precursors to labor. Labor was the foundation of Phase 4. Phase 4 introduced the concept of utility. Utility measured whether compliance could translate into productivity. Productivity could justify program continuity. The program believed that compliant adults could perform low-complexity labor tasks more efficiently than untrained adults. Untrained adults negotiate, complain, resist, or quit. Compliant adults do not. Utility required documentation. Documentation required identification. Identification required legal recognition. Subjects did not possess legal recognition. Some subjects had birth certificates, some did not. Some had been surrendered without documentation. Some had been transferred without state involvement. The state cannot recognize a person. It does not acknowledge. The remote care division compensated for the absence of identification through private contracts. Private contracts do not require birth certificates. Private contracts do not require school transcripts. Private contracts require compliance. Subjects were placed into roles with minimal social interaction. Basement, archives, storage facilities, laundry operations, kitchen prep, factory sorting, custodial work, night shifts, back-end clerical tasks, transcription programs, data labeling. The modern economy contains many positions where silence is beneficial. Silent workers do not disrupt operations. Silent workers do not negotiate wages. Silent workers do not request benefits. Silent workers do not unionize. Silent workers do not report exploitation. The remote care division functioned as a silent labor pipeline. The public did not identify the pipeline because it operated below the threshold of scandal. Subjects did not suffer dramatically. They did not die. They did not protest. They worked. Corporate environments prefer predictability. Predictability prefers compliance. Compliance prefers conditioning. Conditioning produces quiet. Adults know law prohibits the training of quiet adults. By the late 1990s, several subjects had transitioned from guardianship to labor placements. Some placements were local, some were remote. Remote placements were particularly efficient. Remote systems do not require personal interaction. Remote employees do not require identity in traditional forms. Remote operations require only an output. Output replaced identity. Compliance replaced. Autonomy. Silence replaced participation. Neighbors, colleagues, and supervisors rarely questioned the subjects. They did not cause problems. They did not display agitation. They responded to instructions without hesitation. A supervisor provided testimony regarding one subject during an interview in 2009. He stated, "He worked nights in the document room. He never corrected me. He never asked for clarification. I would explain the task once. He would do it the same way every day. Exactly the same." The interviewer asked if the subject ever spoke. The supervisor paused before answering. He did speak, just not for conversation. If you asked him a direct question, he answered, but only the part that required answering. Nothing else. No extra words. No questions back. If I said good night, he didn't say it back. He just looked at me and then walked out. When asked if the behavior concerned him, the supervisor replied, "It didn't concern me. It concerned someone else." He did not elaborate on who. Subjects were rarely fired from placements. Employers reported high consistency. Guardians reported low maintenance. The foundation reported successful outcomes. The state did not report at all. The remote care division succeeded by avoiding friction. It did not ask for resources. It did not request oversight. It did not generate complaints. It did not provoke investigation. Programs are investigated when they produce noise. The remote care division produced none. Subjects aged through adulthood. Children became adults without adolescence. Adolescence was unnecessary. Adolescence implies questioning. The program did not prepare subjects to question. It prepared them to comply. Some subjects acquired state identification eventually, not through birth records. Through employment forms. Employment requires identity. Identity requires paperwork. Paperwork can be generated if compliance is demonstrated. The foundation provided documentation for those who transitioned to labor. Documentation did not include childhood history. Documentation began at adulthood. Subjects became legal at 18. Legal adulthood, without legal childhood, is unusual. It is not illegal. When investigators reconstructed the program decades later, they discovered a pattern. Subjects with compliant behavior obtained identification through employment. Subjects without employment remained invisible. Employment solved. Recognition solved. Existence solved legality. Legality solved nothing else. Of the 12 subjects identified from the St. Raymond's program, several remained traceable. Some were untraceable. All were silent. Silence persists. Tracking the subjects required more than records. Records did not exist. Investigators relied on indirect traces. Utility bills, rental agreements, employment logs, and medical visits. None of these sources confirmed origin. They confirmed only presence. Presence without origin complicates accountability. State cannot be held responsible for individuals it never recorded. Corporations cannot be held responsible for individuals they did not hire. Directly, guardians cannot be held responsible for adults who no longer live with them. The foundation cannot be held responsible for adults who no longer receive stipends. Responsibility diffuses until it disappears. Legal experts refer to the phenomenon as jurisdictional evaporation. Jurisdictional evaporation occurs when an individual is positioned in a manner where multiple systems could claim responsibility, but none do. A child placed in a hospital belongs to medical jurisdiction. A child placed in a school belongs to educational jurisdiction. Child placed in state custody belongs to legal jurisdiction. A child placed in private guardianship belongs to none. Guardianship was the remote care division's most effective mechanism. The guardianship system required no legal registration. Guardians were compensated for participation, not parental rights. Parental rights imply permanence. The program relied on impermanence. Most guardians participated for several years. Payments ceased when subjects reached adulthood. Guardians did not inquire about further oversight. Oversight did not exist. Subjects transitioned to independent living. Independence did not include self-determination. It included routine. Researchers reviewing the program noted that subjects did not display typical adult anxiety regarding employment, finances, or housing. Subjects accepted housing assigned to them. Subjects accepted work provided to them. Subjects accepted schedules given to them. Acceptance without negotiation implies conditioning. Conditioning without context implies design. Some subjects integrated into remote work environments as technology evolved. Remote tasks suited the program's output. Typing requires minimal interaction. Transcription requires minimal speech. Annotation requires minimal identity. Silence became an asset. 1. Transcription employer recalled an encounter with an RC subject during a quality audit in the early 2000s. She described the subject as accurate, consistent, and unbuttered. When asked to elaborate, she paused and explained. He did not seem like he was waiting for anything. Most people are waiting for something. A break, a promotion, a compliment, a reason to leave. He was not waiting. He was just doing. Investigators later interviewed other supervisors who used similar language, words such as neutral, steady, predictable, and calm recurred across multiple testimonies. None of these words indicated emotional interpretation. They indicated absence of turbulence. Emotional turbulence is common among workers. It drives turnover. Subjects did not produce turnover. Subjects produced output. The program did not refer to subjects as workers. They were units. Workers. Negotiate. Units performed by the late 2000s. The foundation had shifted its interests from behavioral compliance to employment efficiency. Compliance was no longer the endpoint. It was the input. The endpoint was utility. Utility validated the program. Internal documents describe. Phase V has a validation period. Validation required proof of operational benefit. Subjects provided proof by functioning in remote and semi-remote positions without support, incentives, or conflict resolution. Conflict resolution was rare. Subjects did not file complaints. Subjects did not seek promotions. Subjects did not demand recognition. Subjects did not quit. Quiet employees are valuable. Quiet adults are invisible. Invisibility is advantageous in administrative sectors, logistics, and data operations. It reduces friction. Friction attracts attention. The remote care division did not attract attention when inquiries into the program surfaced decades later. Investigators encountered a unique obstacle. The subjects did not identify as victims. Victimhood implies harm. Harm implies awareness. Awareness requires perspective. Perspective requires a sense of self. Separate from routine. Subjects demonstrated limited perspective. A medical researcher who encountered an adult subject during a clinical study described the experience. I asked him about his childhood. He paused. Then he said, "I worked." He did not correct himself. He did not elaborate. He did not ask why I was asking. The sentence was true in his mind. He worked. That was his childhood. The absence of childhood memories among subjects is not evidence of trauma. It is evidence of structure. Trauma disrupts. Structure replaces. Remote care, division, subjects did not remember play. They did not remember school. They did not remember family. They remembered tasks. Tasks are more durable than emotions. Emotions require context. Tasks require instruction. Subjects were conditioned to perform tasks without context. When researchers analyzed interviews, they observed unusual speech patterns among subjects. Speech was functional, not conversational. Answers were concise, literal, and devoid of reciprocal interest. A clinical transcript from a 2012 interview illustrates the pattern. Interviewer: do you enjoy your work? Subject: I do the work. Interviewer: do you like the work environment? Subject: it is where the work is. Interviewer: do you have coworkers? Subject: I work alone. Interviewer: do you ever feel lonely? Subject: I complete tasks. Interviewer: do you want something different? Subject: different from what? Interviewer: different from your current life. Subject: this is my life. The transcript was not considered disturbing by clinical standards. It was considered efficient. Efficiency without self-concept is not categorized as pathology. It is categorized as adaptation. The remote care division did not produce victims. It produced adaptations. Researchers who reviewed decades of data concluded that the subjects represented a rare case of institutional adulthood without adolescence. Adolescence exists to build identity. Identity complicates compliance. Compliance complicates efficiency. The remote care division removed adolescence. Adolescence cannot be removed without consequences. The consequences did not appear dramatic. They appeared subtle. Subjects displayed minimal self-advocacy, minimal autonomy, minimal preference, minimal narrative. Narrative is the story individuals tell about themselves. Most humans construct narratives through experience. Subjects constructed narratives through tasks. Tasks do not produce stories. Tasks produce output. A behavioral anthropologist summarized the phenomenon. They are like adults who skip the middle part, childhood, then utility. No rebellion, no identity formation, no ideology, no friction. When asked whether the subjects suffered, the anthropologist clarified, suffering requires unmet desire. I am not sure they were trained to desire anything. The program's success depended on the suppression of desire. Desire produces negotiation. Negotiation produces dissent. Dissent produces oversight. Oversight produces scandal. Scandal ends programs. The remote care division ended without scandal. Programs that end without scandal often do not end. They dissolve into other structures. Phase. Vi was never documented publicly. Investigators believe Phase 6 was assimilation. Assimilation does not require awareness. It requires compatibility. Subjects were compatible with low-complexity labor. Compatibility made them employable. Employment made them legitimate. Legitimacy concealed origin. Concealment eliminated the need to resolve the program unresolved. Programs create quiet legacies. Quiet legacies do not attract media coverage. They attract researchers. In 2015, a sociologist studying labor patterns in the Northeast identified an anomaly. She observed clusters of workers with similar behavioral profiles, appearing across multiple industries. Workers were compliant, punctual, conflict-free, and socially neutral. They did not participate in office. Culture, they did not socialize. They did not unionize. They did not resist. When the sociologists attempted to interview them, most declined. Declining was not refusal. Declining was compliance with routine. Routine did not include interviews. One subject agreed. He did not provide history. He provided tasks. He listed his previous positions in chronological order, with dates and duties. He did not include reasons for leaving. He did not include preferences. He did not include aspirations. Aspirations imply projection. Projection implies identity. Identity complicates compliance. The sociologist requested additional interviews. The foundation declined. The foundation continues to decline. Once Phase 6 became apparent to investigators, a new problem emerged. The remote care division never filed termination paperwork. Programs that end formally produce closure. Programs that end informally produce ambiguity. Ambiguity allowed the remote care division to dissolve into the labor market without a legal endpoint. Inquiries into the Foundation's records revealed that stipend payments ceased gradually between 1998 and 2003. There was no mass termination. Stipends simply expired as subjects reached adulthood. Guardians received closing letters. Closing letters used the phrase transition period completed. They did not specify what subjects transitioned into. Guardians were not asked to surrender their subjects. Subjects did not return to hospitals. Subjects did not enter state care. They continued living where they were. Transition without destination implies integration. The integration phase relied on a critical assumption. Compliant adults are self-sustaining. Adults who do not resist can be placed anywhere. Adults who do not demand can be managed easily. Adults who do not assert identity do not require identity to function. Identity was optional. Investigators later discovered that several subjects lacked social security numbers during early adulthood. This did not prevent employment. Private contractors do not evaluate history. They evaluate output. When investigators attempted to reconstruct employment patterns, they encountered a consistent trend. Subjects worked through intermediaries. Intermediaries handled payroll. Intermediaries handled scheduling. Intermediaries handled documentation. Intermediaries handled compliance. Compliance became a commodity. The remote care division became a supply chain. In 2017, a labor economist analyzing subcontractor networks in New England identified irregularities in subcontractor clusters. Workers with no public employment history appeared in invoice systems, with no onboarding dates and no prior training. They worked consistently for years without promotion or reassignment. Their tasks included scanning, sorting, filing, packaging, formatting, and transcription. The economist described the cluster as low-agency labor. Low-agency labor is characterized by minimal self-advocacy and high stability. Most low-agency labor originates through immigration pipelines or incarceration pipelines. These clusters did not match either. The Economist attempted to interview company administrators. Administrators declined. One administrator replied that subcontracting was handled by a third-party vendor. Third-party vendors referred to fourth-party vendors. Fourth-party vendors operated offshore. Supply chain opacity is common in modern logistics. Opacity protects margins. Opacity also protects origins. Researchers investigating the remote care division confronted a new phenomenon. The subjects had vanished into the labor market not as victims, but as infrastructure. Infrastructure is unnoticed by design. Subjects became infrastructure. The remote care division did not produce public outcomes. It produced silent systems. Silent systems are difficult to remove. Systems persist through utility. Utility is an argument for continuation. When investigators attempted to locate the subjects as individuals, they faced an unusual barrier. Most people who encountered the subjects did not remember them, not because they disappeared, because they did not imprint. Imprinting requires social interaction. Subjects did not interact socially. They interacted functionally. One former co-worker described an encounter with the subject several years after they worked together. Her statement was recorded. During a research interview, I remember the desk he sat at more than I remember him. It's strange. He was there every night, but I can't remember his voice. I don't even know if he had one. The researcher asked if she found the memory unsettling. She replied, "It's unsettling how normal it felt at the time." Normality protects programs. Only abnormalities provoke inquiry. The remote care division removed abnormalities. Investigators also noted an unexpected feature among subjects: the absence of loneliness. Loneliness emerges from unmet social needs. Subjects did not express social needs. They did not seek companionship. They did not seek communities. They did not require belonging. Belonging complicates systems. Isolation simplifies them. The remote care division optimized for simplicity. When medical researchers attempted psychological evaluations decades after placement, they discovered an unusual pattern. Subjects scored within normal ranges for affect regulation, impulse control, and depressive markers. They did not qualify for psychiatric diagnoses. They did not qualify for disability. They did not qualify for intervention. They qualified for employment. Researchers identified one domain of deviation: desire formation. Subjects demonstrated minimal preference. Preference implies selection. Selection implies identity. Identity implies autonomy. Autonomy implies negotiation. The remote care division did not prepare subjects to negotiate. One clinical evaluator summarized the behavioral profile: they are not apathetic. Apathetic individuals feel the absence of engagement. These individuals do not seem to register the dimension where engagement would occur. Subjects did not engage in leisure. They did not cultivate hobbies. They did not pursue relationships. They did not seek novelty. Novelty disrupts routine. Routine was the central architecture of the program. Routine organizes compliance. Compliance organizes utility. Utility organizes justification. The foundation justified the program through utility. The state did not require further justification. When asked why the program was never disclosed, a legal consultant familiar with the foundation's operations provided an explanation. The program did not violate any laws. You cannot regulate what you cannot categorize. Classification shapes oversight. Oversight shapes accountability. The remote care division avoided classification. Without classification, oversight becomes optional. In 2020, a journalist investigating historical corporate labor practices in New England encountered references to silent workers across multiple interviews. The journalist assumed the term referred to migrant labor. Further, investigation revealed the subjects were native-born. Migration did not explain. Silence. Conditioning did. Journalists do not investigate silence. They investigate noise. Noise creates stories. Silence creates systems. The remote care division created a system where silence generated output without public visibility or ethical inquiry. One question remained. Did the subjects know they had participated in a program? Investigators attempted to assess subject awareness through direct questioning. Awareness requires narrative structure. Subjects provided no narrative structure. Subjects provided routines. A video interview conducted in 2009 captured the phenomenon. The interviewer asked, "Do you remember being in the hospital?" The subject paused. Then he replied, "I remember tasks." The interviewer clarified, "Do you remember other children?" The subject replied, "I remember tasks." The interviewer attempted a third time. "Do you remember any part of childhood?" The subject replied, "I worked." He did not appear distressed. He appeared factual. Factual statements do not imply trauma. They imply precision. The absence of narrative does not mean stories were removed. It means stories were never constructed. Narrative construction occurs through adolescence. Adolescence never occurred. Investigators evaluating the program concluded that the remote care division did not erase identity, it preempted it. Preemption is more efficient than correction. Correction requires force. Preemption requires timing. The timing was precise. When researchers finally reconstructed the remote care division's operational model, they reached a conclusion that was neither dramatic nor reassuring. The program had worked. It had not worked in the way medical programs are meant to work. It had worked in the way industrial systems are meant to work. It produced output without disruption. In economic terms, the remote care division converted children into functional adults without adolescence, without identity, and without narrative. From the foundation's perspective, this was an achievement. From the state's perspective, this was a known issue. From the subject's perspective, there was no perspective to articulate. When asked whether any of the subjects ever questioned their participation, researchers answered the only way they could. There is no evidence of inquiry. Inquiry requires curiosity. Curiosity requires desire. Desire requires self. The remote care division did not cultivate selves. The most unsettling aspect of the program was not what it did. It was what it avoided doing. The program did not harm subjects visibly. It did not traumatize them openly. It did not confine them violently. It did not silence them through force. It silenced them through architecture. Architecture is more durable than violence. Violence must be maintained. Architecture maintains itself. By the time the program dissolved into the labor market, the subjects no longer required supervision. They did not require instruction. They did not require reinforcement. They had become self-guiding units of compliance. Units of compliance do not petition. Units of compliance do not unionize. Units of compliance do not revolt. Units of compliance do not ask. Why? The remote care division did not disappear. It became unnecessary. Researchers identified at least 6 subjects living independently across 3 states. All 6 held jobs. All 6 paid rent. All 6 performed tasks. None of them had spouses. None of them had children. None of them maintained friendships. When investigators asked neighbors if they knew them, neighbors replied with variations of the same answer. They were quiet. Quiet is not a personality trait. Quiet is an output. Of the original 12 subjects, 5 remain unaccounted for. They are not listed as missing persons. They are not listed as deceased. They are not listed at all. They do not fit into any database. Databases require classification. Classification requires identity. Identity requires origin. Origin was never formalized. The foundation issued no closing statements. The hospital issued no apologies. The state issued no reports. The public asked no questions. Programs do not require secrecy when the public does not look for them. The remote care division is now referenced in academic literature as an example of institutional adulthood without adolescence. The phrase is clinical. Clinical language protects the reader. It also protects the institution. When a researcher was asked whether the program could still exist in some form, she responded, "It would not need to exist as a program. Not anymore. When asked if subjects could be identified today, she replied, "You would not recognize them as different." That was the point. The legacy of the remote care division is not measured in records, it is measured in silence. Silence that persists, silence that works, silence that pays rent. The investigators issued a final internal summary. The children from Ward C did not vanish. They became adults in plain sight. Plain sight is the safest place to hide. The investigation into the remote care division yielded one last unanswered question. Where did the foundation obtain the placements? Guardians are not infinite. Contracts do not appear spontaneously. Remote labor pipelines require infrastructure. Infrastructure requires intermediaries. In 2021, a historian reviewing archival grant ledgers noticed a pattern. Several foundations and corporate entities appearing across remote care division documents later reappeared in procurement records for hospitals, data processing centers, and transcription vendors across New England. The names were familiar, not because they were public, because they were recurring. Institutions do not vanish, they reorganize.